Hello everyone, welcome back to episode number 2. I want to thank everyone that took the time to watch the first video. I really appreciated that and really enjoyed interacting with some of you in the comments section and learning a little bit about you. The next thing I want to do is I want to thank a few people. First person obviously is John Mangini, who actually challenged people to show some of their best looking cards. Without him, he kind of gave me that little nudge that I needed to kind of put my toe in and jump in and do some videos. So I really appreciate that. The next person I want to thank is Steve from Vintage Cards Steve, one of the nicest people that I've met in this community so far. I really like the way he does his videos, as far as he has this real passion for what he collects, and he enjoys telling stories with the cards and telling you something about the players and teams. And that's something I kind of want to model my videos around. So he kind of gave me that inspiration, if you will. And then the third person is Eric from Those Back Pages. Those Back Pages were, that was the first, one of the first at least, video channels that I actually watched, YouTube channels that I actually watched on cards. And the thing that struck me about Eric right from the get-go was his real passion for collecting and his desire to help build the card collecting community and to build the hobby. And he's always talking about people making content. He's always encouraging people to just make content, just start it, just make a video. It doesn't have to be some great production, but just put something out there. And he comes from a point of view that tomorrow is not guaranteed. None of us are going to be here forever. And he looks at it as a great way for people to leave something behind for their friends and family, something that they can actually remember them by, showing their passion for collecting cards. And I guess I would feel a little odd if I talked about Eric and did not mention 620. So for those of you that don't know, this is card number 620 from the 1985 Topps baseball set. And for those that did not watch baseball in 1985 or did not collect in 1985, this was one of the hottest cards of, well, it was the hottest card of the year. And honestly, maybe one of the hottest cards in the history of sports card collecting. And to me, Dwight Gooden may have had some of the best stuff I've ever seen for a pitcher. And this is actually Eric's favorite card, and he's got a story behind that, and you can look at his channel for that. But just wanted to put that out there, and I salute you with this, Eric. Card 620. Now, to get on to what this video is actually about, I titled it, How Did It Start? And basically, I started collecting cards in 1980. The first packs of cards that I opened were 1980 Topps football cards. And basically how that came about is like any kid in the 70s and 80s, I played a lot of arcade games and video games and would hang out at the mall and just pump quarters after quarter after quarter into the video games. And my mom actually worked at the local mall. And when I was on holiday break and things like that, she would take me with her and I would hang out and play video games while she worked. And one day I was on my way back to the GC Murphy, which was in the mall. They had an arcade in the back of the store there. And I was on my way back there and I was walking down the candy aisle, and I saw this box of 1980 Topps football cards just staring at me. And they happened to be 25 cents a pack. I bought a couple of packs and went outside to the bench that was outside the store there, sat down, opened up the cards, popped the gum in my mouth, and one of the first cards that was in that first pack was a Tony Hill card. Now, being that I grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan, I was absolutely excited to get the Tony Hill card. But it wasn't just that. It was just the thrill of seeing these players. You know, there was no internet back then, none of that, so you didn't see pictures of players except on TV, and even those pictures were not very good in the 70s and 80s. You saw them in magazines and things like that. So to be able to see them on cards that I could hold in my hand and and see pictures of some of my favorite players, that was just something that was very exciting to me. So that's basically how I got started with that. I ended up not playing any video games that day. I took all my quarters, went and bought packs of cards, opened them all up, shoved every last piece of gum in my mouth at one time, and took home my little stash of newfound treasures. Now, I am mostly a vintage collector, and I really especially love the vintage football cards. But I am mostly a vintage collector. I do collect some modern stuff and current stuff as well. But my real passion is with vintage cards. And I think that was kind of stoked by when I first started collecting cards. I took some of my cards to school and was showing them to some people at school. And there was a kid in my class who told me that their dad had some cards that he collected when he was a kid. And he was going to try to see if his dad would give me the cards. A few days later, the kid brought a stack of cards in, and they were from a few 1955 Bowman football cards, 1956 Topps football cards, and a few 1957 baseball cards. And I'm going to show this 1956 Topps Chuck Bednarik card. This is one of my favorite cards from this set. I just love this pose with the orange background. And I think from that moment, just seeing, you know, these old players with these goofy uniforms and these weird looking old helmets, and who knew that Chicago that the Cardinals played in Chicago at one point. I'd never seen that before. I didn't know there was such thing as the Chicago Cardinals. And so ever since then, at that moment, I felt attached to the old cards, learning about the history. I would read the backs of them. And to me, that was just fascinating. Now, my desire and my love for vintage cards kind of grew as I went to the local flea market with my dad, which was kind of a custom of ours that we would do on the weekend. And I came across my first dealer, sports card dealer that I ever saw. His name was Paul Snow. He was set up at the local flea market, and he had all these old cards from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. People I'd never seen before on cards, like Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams, Hank Aaron, and Willie Mays, people like that. And it was just amazing to me. I'd never seen these things, and they were the most incredible things I'd ever seen as a 12-year-old kid. So the first card that I actually bought from him, I bought a 1959 Topps Yogi Berra. And the reason I bought a Yogi Berra card was this was actually my mom's favorite player growing up. She was a Yankee fan, and she would always talk about Yogi Berra. Now, I paid $6 for that Yogi Berra card. A lot more today, obviously. And I took it home and I showed her, and it was amazing the amount of joy that she got from seeing that card. And I guess it meant something to her also that I would think to buy her favorite player as the first vintage card that I ever bought. And ever since then, I've just had an affinity for vintage cards as something that I've always loved and appreciated. And, you know, I miss my mom. She's been gone now for almost 12 years. And she was always really encouraging with my collecting. She would, as I said, she worked at the mall. And every day from 1980 until 1987, she would bring home 2 packs of cards for me to open. And I built my collection that way, and saving my money from allowance and mowing yards and raking leaves and things of that nature. And it's something that I'll always remember about my mom and how she would encourage my card collecting. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to just talk a little bit about what this YouTube channel will look like, hopefully. What I want it to look like is, I believe cards tell a story. I believe they tell stories about the players that are on the card, about the teams, and most importantly, about the people that collect them. You learn a lot about people when you start talking to them about what they collect, why they collect, how long they've been collecting. the different things that go into building their collection, you really start learning a lot about people when you see that and talk to them. And so what I want is I want this channel to kind of be about that, where these cards are going to tell a story. I'll show some cards and just talk about the different things that these players accomplished and things of that nature. Now, one of the things I did show here was, as I said, Tony Hill was one of the first players that I recognized in the first pack of cards that I opened up. And like I said, I love the 1980 Topps football set. It's not the most popular set in the world, but it was my first set, and I love it. So I'm showing a Tony Hill card here. Walter Payton, who was one of my favorite players growing up and one of the all-time greats. When he retired, he was the all-time leading rusher. And at the time when he broke that record, I didn't think it would ever be broken. And of course, Emmitt Smith later came and he did break that. And then the other card is of Terry Bradshaw. They were coming off of back-to-back Super Bowl wins and obviously one of the all-time great players as well. He won a total of 4 Super Bowls and part of those great Steeler teams of the 70s and early 80s. And then these next cards that I want to show, and then I'm going to wrap this up. These cards were made in 1910. These are Olympic cards. These are from the T218 set. And these look kind of just like regular, ordinary cards, and I guess to some degree they are. But the thing that makes these special is if you flip them over on the back, I'm going to move them up here so you can get a better look at them, is the stamp on the backs of the cards. These have Jefferson Burdick's stamp. And for those that don't know, Jefferson Burdick was the grandfather of card collecting. In the early 30s, he started collecting cards, and he would catalog cards, and he's actually responsible for some of the set designations that we have for tobacco cards and caramel cards and all those different cards. And he ended up leaving his collection to the Met in New York when he passed away. But you know, he should be an inspiration to all of us. He did so much to grow the hobby in the very beginning. And I think we have this unique opportunity today with all the different resources and technology that we have that we can actually do a lot to build the hobby as a community as well. And I think it's a good thing to do that. I believe in this hobby. It's something I've always enjoyed for 40 years now. And it's something I want to see grow. I want to encourage people to collect cards because they enjoy it. It's a fun hobby, and it's something that I hope will continue to grow over the years and that people will get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So I'm going to wrap this up. This was episode number 2. If you liked it, give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do that. And feel free to leave some comments about how you got started collecting cards and why you collect and what you collect. And that would be great. Take care and be well.